This is Kelly.
This is Amy.
And you're listening to Diary of a Death Investigator. I think Amy's had one too many Celsius drinks.
It's my first. I've had 2 coffees, though.
She's amped. I think it's the new year. She's super amped about the new year. New possibilities. New you.
New year, new me. Probably same stuff will happen year after year. But hey, we're going to try.
Maybe this is your year. Maybe you find your dream boat this year.
Is there a boat out there for me? I don't know. We're looking. I'm looking out the windows. Oh, there's Dad. Oh, hey, maybe that is a sign. Dad? It's a thing. Maybe this really is my year.
Oh, jeez. This episode, we are calling Who's the Patient? Amy, I will let you start.
This is quite an interesting case. I don't know how. Well, let me just get into this and then I'll just surprise you guys. This individual, she is in her mid-40s and she was a nurse at a hospital. I was told that she was found down in her bedroom on the floor, and she lived in an apartment with her mother who was elderly. And supposedly she was helping take care of her mother that needed looking after and had taken quite a bit of medication, I believe. So I asked the officers that had responded to the scene if there was anything that looked unusual to them. And they had told me no. So I was like, that's odd, because usually when you find someone that's in their mid-40s, down unresponsive, that's unusual, right? And you're like, okay, well, is there any drug usage? They're like, well, there's these bottles on the floor next to her. I'm like, what do you mean bottles? And they're like, well, it's called Diprivan. And I'm like, okay, Diprivan as in propofol? They're like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, well, let me just check this out when I get there. I'm like, please do not move anything. Don't remove any medications or anything from the home, please. And they're like, well, is it okay if the mom leaves the home? I'm like, yeah, of course. That's totally fine. She's older. This is probably super stressful for her. Absolutely. You can take her out of the home. That's totally fine. Well, come to find out when I get there, they're like, oh yeah, well, we went ahead and took all the mom's medications out with her as well. I'm like, oh, you guys, what was the one thing I told you not to do was to not take the mom's medications, because mom and all her medications are gone too. And I'm like, if you think this is a potential overdose case, why would you take all the medications with her? And they're like, stupid, apparently, because the girl's a nurse. She knows what to take to overdose. I'm just super irritated with them. I'm like, you're telling me that you think this is an overdose. Mom takes a bunch of medications, bags of medications. She has grocery bags, apparently, medications. They're like, well, these are trash bags of stuff that she's taken. I'm like, you guys are so irritating.
If she had medicine next to her, did they leave all the stuff that was next to her, or they took that too? Because they just assumed it was the mom's medication.
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Amy has her finger up.
Whatever had the mom's name on it, which is also super irritating, is they let the family come in and do whatever they wanted in the house, which is technically a crime scene at this point because we don't really know what happened. So they let the family come in and do whatever they wanted in the house and go through stuff and then take what they wanted. And I'm like, so they could have covered up anything at this point by coming into the house. I'm like, ugh. One of those rubbing the temples kind of thing, kneading the eyebrows. Just leave me be.
In our house now, there's a new saying for all of that. Jeff has decided it's called the Keanu Reeves. So you just Keanu Reeves it. You just let it go.
So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll just work with this because really when it comes down to it, toxicology will tell us what's in her system. So you dumb. So I go into her room and I realize oh, this woman's at least 300 pounds. So I might need to be nice to them to move her anyways.
Whoa. Wait a minute. The nurse was 300 pounds?
Yes. And so I'm like, I've never seen a nurse that's 300 pounds because they do a lot of walking on shifts. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying that would be a difficult job to do. And so when I see her, though, there's a syringe that's next to her on the floor. And then I see that she has tried to basically put IVs into herself as well, and specifically like into her legs, which is a weird place. But she has one, old injection sites in her arms where you typically see in your like forearms, right? She has old injection sites in her forearms. And then like in her legs, she has also tried to put like basically IVs. So there, of course, I see these 4 bottles, and these Diprivan bottles, they're big bottles. I can't remember if they're 100 or 200 milliliter bottles. They're huge. They're hospital grade, like what you get from the hospital. So obviously she's stealing from the hospital because you can't like buy these. And it's not like she's prescribed these, because these are basically used for like nausea and like basically to help a patient relax. It's for like anxiety, like muscle pain, that kind of stuff. It's not like something that is just like prescribed.
So it's in liquid form.
Yes.
So it would hang like in a baggie.
Yeah. Or like you would inject it into like a sterile drip. And it's milky looking, like it's like a white, milky looking substance. And so I'm like, what the heck is she doing with these? And I'm like, this is so weird. She has 4 of these bottles. I'm like, what the heck? This is so weird. So this is obviously what she's been injecting into herself.
Okay, wait, I have a question. So the bottles don't have names on them?
They do. They say Diprivan.
No, but I mean, all your prescriptions have your name on them, right? When you go and pick them up.
Right. Yeah. No, because she stole them from the hospital. It's like what the nurses and doctors have to check out. And all those things, you have to use a code to get in. So she's having to use either her code or someone else's code or like her key card to like swipe for those. And they keep very close track of like, if you've ever watched like Nurse Jackie.
No.
Oh, it's hilarious.
But I might now.
They keep close track of that stuff to make sure like it's not being stolen. It's not like being abused or like sold or whatever. So yeah, I'm like, this is so weird. So then I start going through like other things of hers, like looking into her cabinets and stuff. And she has other old like bottles of things. And it looks like she has like old pain medications that were like old prescriptions. So I don't know if maybe she got hooked on old pain medications and then she started needing to become like codependent upon something that was stronger. And then I looked into her backpack that looked like she like took to work with her, and she had patient paperwork with notes on their medications. And then like, of course, had like reactions to like their medications and stuff. And so what basically had happened was that she was starting to like skim off of like patients' medications, looking at what patients were taking, and she would like take a little bit off of their meds.
How do you even do that?
If you can get like one pill of what they're taking, like who's going to notice one pill missing from here or there? So like if you go in their thing to like take their medications and they get those little cups or whatever, patient's not going to notice like, oh, I'm missing one pill.
That's pretty important though, if these people need those pills.
Right. So that's why it says reactions to meds. So she could see if this patient doesn't get one pill, what is their reaction to not having that medication?
Oh, so she was writing the notes in.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, she's shady.
Yeah. So she was like skimming off meds from there too.
My sister-in-law is a nurse, and we're going to have her on here. I want to know all the dirty secrets of nursing, although I'm not sure she could tell us. But like things that she's seen, because I wouldn't have even thought of any of that. I mean, you would think things would be so regulated, or she wouldn't even be allowed to leave the hospital with patient information.
I think she was making copies.
But even still, you would think they would check. So when I worked in retail many, many moons ago, we would always check their bags and stuff before they would leave, right? To make sure they weren't stealing anything. There was a checks and balance system. So everybody up until the very last person, because I usually close the store, I did the night shifts too. You would stay late at night to reset the stores. And so you maybe checked each other, right? You and somebody else would leave and you would check each other and then go. But how is there no check system? So that's what I want to know. I want to ask her,
I don't know. I mean, really think about how many patients come in, right? Like every day and just into like an ER
Right.
every day. There is so much paperwork too that goes through an ER just within a 12-hour shift. So I don't know if it just started off with one patient at a time where she was making copies and it was just really easy for her just to slip that into her bag. But apparently she found a system that worked for her, but it eventually caught up to her. And I think someone started to notice. And I think that's when she started to freak out because then she didn't show up for her shift that day. And that's whenever they tried to get a hold of her. And that's when her brother went to do like a welfare check on her. And so that's when they had found her. That's, of course, why I ended up there. Of course, you know, they had told me they took all the mother's medications and stuff out of the house. But once we had started to move her to try to get her loaded up and we rolled her over, guess what I found underneath her? I found like 3 more bags of the mother's medications.
What? Oh, she was a big lady because I was like, how do you hide that?
Yeah, she was not only taking medications from the hospital, but she was also taking her mom's medication as well because she was only diagnosed with like asthma. She was then taking the mom's medication as well because the mom had like all of these health problems. She was taking the mom's medications and keeping them in her room to like monitor what the mom was taking because she could say, you know, well, I'm a nurse and I can monitor what mom's taking. So she was keeping the medications in her room and then she could also take her mom's medications whenever she wanted to. There were so many bags because a lot of times if it's something that is like a pain medication, a lot of these doctors will prescribe like a 3 months allotted amount, especially if they're like those ones that are in the blister packs. They'll like give all those to you in a 3 months advance of like 90 pills at a time in those blister packs. She just probably thought, mom won't remember. I can just use her to get whatever I want. At the hospital, you can also get the sample packs of those as well. They're samples. No one's going to notice because the doctors push those sample packs as well.
So do you think she was refilling her mom's prescriptions and maybe her mom didn't need them anymore? Because how could one person take that many prescriptions?
Well, I take a bunch of prescriptions. Elderly people, they take a ton of prescriptions, especially for pain management as well. So you can have like 3 different doctors prescribing you. But there again, they can check online. There's a system online where doctors can check and see what you're being prescribed by every doctor so that you're not being prescribed the same medication by another doctor. So you're not getting the same pain medication because that's how people abuse.
So what did she end up dying from?
Oh, an overdose.
Of which medication?
From that Diprivan.
Oh, so the muscle relaxant or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She must have succeeded in getting a needle in her. Can you drink it?
You don't want to ingest it that way because you would start throwing it up and it doesn't taste very good. She was trying to intentionally overdose. So she was trying to inject it to the point of overdosing purposely. 1, that's quicker, and 2, she wouldn't be throwing it up. But the other side of that is also if she wasn't successful in that, she could also basically become like a vegetable. Like what happens is if you're intentionally trying to overdose and you're not successful in that point and you end up just passing out, basically what happens with this type of drug is you just have like seizures and then your brain becomes non-functional and you can have brainstem function, but not to the point of where you can do anything. So then she could just be put into like a drug-induced coma and kept alive, but not to the point where she could like do anything.
Had she taken the medication that was underneath her when you found her? Did she have any of that in her system too?
I don't remember, but I mean, to this point, it wouldn't have been to the point of like the cause of death because the cause of death was essentially the propofol or the Diprivan because that's what eventually caused the manner of death of the overdose.
Did you end up talking to the hospital? Do you know that that's why she overdosed because they caught her?
The doctors did have us do a follow-up because they knew that there were things that were going missing. They were doing like their own investigation on her because the hospitals know when things are going missing.
Right.
They're going to notice if 4 bottles of this are going to be gone, especially that big of a bottle.
I didn't know if maybe she took that in the final hurrah, like she knew that she was going to go that night. And so she took it. Or if it was like the amount of stress from her mom being sick.
No, I think she knew she was being caught. I think that was basically, well, she was going to go out her way before like they could basically tell her.
Well, and it sounds like it's an easier way if it's relaxation type.
Like I said, though, it could be like if you're not successful, you could be in a worse off condition.
She figured she wouldn't know at that point because her brain wouldn't be working.
Yeah.
I do have a question. You said that the mom was there, but the brother found her?
Yeah, well, because the mom wasn't in like a state of being able to like move. So the mom couldn't move herself. The mom was in a completely different bedroom. The hospital was trying to contact somebody to find out where she was for her shift. She didn't show up for her shift. So they got a hold of the brother. The brother was the one that found her.
Interesting. So now we're going to have to ask my sister-in-law how this goes down. Because I think like if you're trying to get a hold of somebody about a shift or something, I don't know. I guess maybe you like start doing an investigation on like where they're at. But that seemed like a little suspicious. Like it happened fairly quickly.
Yeah, like finding her, you just asked to perform a welfare check or like, hey, can you find her? And then like if they're trying to call her multiple times and she doesn't answer her phone, she could be someone that never misses a shift. And that's really odd for her. Yeah, that is really weird. And like you try to call her and she doesn't answer her phone. Then you show up to her apartment and like her car's there. Huh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Or like maybe call the mom and the mom's like, oh, I haven't heard her leave yet. And the mom's not able to get up and check herself.
So how long had she been dead by the time you got there?
Not very long. She was still warm.
Oh, that's what's so weird. I think they knew they were about to bust her. Maybe they had the police coming in. Maybe she was going to get arrested for stealing these things and she knew. That's the only time I'd ever think there would be a sense of urgency. Like, hey, where's she at? Right away. Because what if her car broke down or something? Or maybe she was in a car accident. I'm speculating now, but I bet you they were ready to like close in on her. And I'm picturing the cops are in the parking lot waiting for her. Maybe they had told her like, hey, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow morning before your shift. And then she just didn't come. And then that was suspicious because again, like I just feel like there had to have been something to cause a sense of urgency for them to look for her. And she's still warm. You know what I mean? Because like you don't show up for a shift. It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe something happened. Okay, 30 minutes goes by, an hour goes by. How long does it take a body to turn cold?
Well, it's dependent upon the person too, right? And the conditions and insulation. It can be a couple hours. This was in June, so it was a little bit warmer anyways. I wouldn't say she was like warm. She had started to cool, so it had been probably a couple of hours.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I guarantee you that she was getting busted. They said they were going to have a meeting with her or something, and they're not going to come off as the bad guy to you, but like, oh yeah, we were about to fire her. We had the cops ready to go because she's already dead at this point. So why are you going to say that? But I bet you they like said, hey, tomorrow morning before your shift, we want to have a meeting. And she knew what the meeting was about. Or they called her ahead of time. Hey, can you come in early? Because you know those calls. Hey, can you come in early? We just want to meet with you because it takes time. So she passed because she probably took care of her mom in the morning, or I'm assuming it's in the morning.
No, this was like nighttime. So her shift was at night. She could have worked night shifts. That's like normal.
Well, yeah, if she worked the night shift, because again, if the work called in and she didn't show up and they did a wellness check, like that's the only way because something had to prompt it within 2 hours. Because I can guarantee you, someone can't get a hold of me for 2 hours. It would be a little bit longer. Even my husband can't get a hold of me for 2 hours. He'd be like, yeah, no, she's fine somewhere.
They're eventually going to notice when things are missing. 4 bottles is very significant. And then with these meds, they're going to notice that stuff. And there's cameras everywhere. So I'm sure if there's cameras in those rooms as well where those meds are at. So they probably noticed or someone noticed there's eyes everywhere.
You know what we didn't do before this episode, and that's my fault. We did not give a trigger warning for this episode. For those of you listening, I'm sorry. If this is a trigger point for you, we'll put it in the notes for the episode before it comes out, or the little blurb on Spotify or Apple. But you can always call if you do know somebody who's in crisis. 988 is a suicide and crisis hotline. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the US. And as always, if you are listening in another country and you'd like us to post a hotline number for that country, please share it to us. You can send it to us to Kelly at diaryofadeathinvestigator.com or send us a message on Instagram. I'm not great at TikTok still, so.
Or like Carly, and you can just straight up tell me in person, like, you're in trouble because I have not seen a new episode.
Yeah, and we try to put out on Wednesdays. That's our day. Sometimes we're a little behind. Sometimes I turn things into Joel late. Sorry, Joel. Especially with the holidays and everything going on. But yeah, send us if there's an episode that you guys want to talk about, maybe that we've had, or there's something that you want to share with us. We'd be happy to share it. We have started doing research, and I keep saying this, but there's also an episode Amy and I would like to research before we share it with you because we think it's suspicious.
Yeah, because I left there before I found out what the actual cause and manner of death were, because what I was being told on scene was not what I believed it to be. It's not what the body was telling me.
And I can also say that pretty sure the person was well off. So somebody would have received a nice payout.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do some investigating. And I told Amy I would like to do the ABCs of death investigation. I know that a lot of people go back and listen to the first episode, and we can say that we have gotten better, I think, since our first 2 episodes. Mostly it's the sound, and we recognize we're not tech savvy people. Mostly me. I'm not tech savvy, and it takes us like 10 minutes to set up every time because something's not working.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking with us. For those people who continue to listen, we try to get better every time, but you know.
My students can tell you I am not tech savvy. I have to have them figure stuff out for me all the time.
And we do get pointers from Joel who's like, you're too loud. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Same thing. So anyway, the point of all of this is we're trying, but if there's extra content that you guys would like to hear, please share it with us, because every week we just choose which ones we like best. But going back to last week's episode about planes, trains, and automobiles, we wouldn't have thought about doing planes if it wasn't for Jay. So if there's something that you would like to hear, Amy probably has a story for it.
I need inspiration.
But thanks for listening, and until next time.
Bye.